Can you feel the sunlight of a brand new day? Our hands held tight together, chase the gray skies away. Can you hear the music of our lullaby? The bloodshed and the tears have passed into the night.
Hello everybody, this is Snarist, and welcome back to my Eternights Expert Mode walkthrough. This is part 11, The Days of Act 4. And following my advice from previous parts, I decided to go back through when editing and I decided to speed everything up. Because a lot of this just boils down to speaking to the different allies we have, finding out what they need, building up their rank, going down their romance paths, romancing them all if we can, and during the night time just gathering more resources, scavenging, getting more white essence to buy skills and improving our stats little by little. This is actually the end of Act 3 right here, and it'll lead into Act 4 because there's quite a few cutscenes between the end of Act 3 and the beginning of Act 4. And that's why I decided to speed things up, because I don't think I'm going to have enough to talk about for an entire hour, so I've cut this down massively. That being said, I think I'll just go into how this game is ultimately going to pan out. So if you're not aware of the story and how it all goes down, what happens is at the end of Act 4, there is a meteor shower, and you need to choose who you're going to invite with you. And so you can either pick Chani, if he's at max rank or whatever, or if no one else, then it's going to be him, or you can choose one of the other girls, or even Yohan. Now, why this is important is because it's not just having to clear the story mission that's tied to Act 4, it's largely to do also with picking a person from your team that you can romance, or that you can build a strong friendship with, at least, if not that. So, Yuna, Min, Sia, and Yohan all can go up to a max of rank 7. Now you need to have one of those four at minimum at rank 6, which means you need to get into rank 5, and then when it comes to Yohan, you either speak to him when he's at rank 3 or your stat for courage is at rank 3, or when the other characters have their associated emotion stat at level 3 as well, and you've done their rank 5 quest, and it leads into whether or not you want to be more of a friend to them or you want to be a romantic partner with them. Because as soon as you pick one of them, then they go up to rank 6, and that makes them eligible. And so what that means is when you get to the end of the game and all these days have passed by and you've beaten the final story mission, Umbra in disguise comes to you in a dream and asks who you value most. And between the four characters being Yuna, Min, Sia, and Yohan, you have to pick which one of them at rank 6 or 7 that you value the most as your romance option, and then you need to choose which one you value the most. And so it'll lead into the 5th act, where there'll be a massive gauntlet fight, and then Umbra will come and, after using Dahlia's corpse as a surrogate to come back, having the ritual completed, then she'll go and kidnap your chosen partner, and then you'll have to do another gauntlet fight, and then you'll have to go to this massive tree where Umbra is waiting, and then you'll have to fight Umbra, and even though you beat her, she pulls out some bullshit and beats you in a cutscene, and then it's a final farewell where you realise you have to let go of that person you chose, and they'll die and pass away, and then, you know, they need to do that in order to destroy Umbra, because Umbra herself is vulnerable to something called the Lux Cannon, where they use the protagonist's power in his arm to power up the Lux Cannon, and when that happens, it destroys everything of pure darkness, which is what Umbra is, but because Umbra kidnapped your love interest by kidnapping a child of Lux and absorbing them into her own being, basically one can't live without the other now, so you need to find a way to separate them, because when you do that, then Umbra will be a pure dark being yet again, and then you'll be able to kill her with the Lux Cannon, or at least put her back to sleep. And then of course you'll wake back up in your apartment when the apocalypse is over and the world's starting to go back to normal. And that's it. That's pretty much the game. And so why this is significant to what I'm discussing right now is the fact that you have to choose between your four partners. If you want my opinion on what makes the final fight the final gauntlet fight and then the final boss fight against Umbra easier is if you pick Yohan, because Yohan already can't fight, and whatever upgrades you've bought in his skill tree already apply. But even then, a lot of his aren't immensely useful, they're just good for your own sort of usual stat buffs. But while it definitely is a loss to have Sia or Min taken away, ultimately I think everyone can agree, or everyone who has knowledge of this game can agree, that if you pick Yuna as your love interest, then she'll get taken away, and so you'll have to fight the final gauntlet, and then you'll have to fight Umbra without the ability to heal. And that's kind of a big deal for a lot of people. I personally don't think it's the end of the world. It's really not that big of a deal. But yeah, being resurrected potentially when you get knocked down, or having all your life come back in an instant, and now the USP has been massively over leveled, you're not going to be short of any healing. So this is definitely a big no-no, and yeah, not having Yuna by your side is definitely a big loss that's felt. And so that's why I'm going to choose to go down the Yuna Romance route here, where I am still going to romance every character that I can, but ultimately I'm going to end up choosing Yuna. It's also what leads into getting every character, or Chani, to the max rank, and getting Yuna, Min, Sia and Yohan to rank 6 as well, so that they're eligible for, I think it's True Player is the achievement or trophy name. And it really helps immensely when it comes to getting Bond Lord as well. And so with that explanation out of the way, something else I got to discuss as well is more or less the nature of, well, it's not really something I had to discuss, it's just more of a story thing. But when it comes to all the characters, I like all their romances a lot. They make a lot of sense. For Yuna in particular, she does end up falling for you mostly because you're helping her reconnect with an old friend, or at least helping her to put a message out, clearing her name, and just trying to re-establish lost honor. By the way, if you can, make sure you do your best to level up Sia in this act as well, because you're going to need her for the final boss against Dahlia, for the final boss of this act. But it's not just that as well, it's because Yuna has been raised as a pop star her whole life, and while we don't know too much about her early life, or what her family is like, or what they think of her, what it all boils down to is that she does desire to be normal, and having a kind of a normalish but still kind of weird guy as her partner, boyfriend, definitely brings her closer to something a bit more common, and she ends up finding herself enjoying the simpler things, or that you realise that she already has that appreciation for the simpler things, but her status as a pop star suggests otherwise. They could have leaned a bit more into that, but yeah, she's definitely not the stereotypical kind of princess, stuck up, kind of lost in her ways type of character. And then we got Sia, who is very much pretty stoic. She's a little goofy at times in her own way, but she takes herself kind of seriously. And a lot of it is to do with the fact that her experimentations are ambitious, they get a little bit out of control. They can be a little tricky to deal with. And so she's afraid to form connections, and while she still has that love for science, she has a hard time expressing it. And you kind of help bring her out in that and bring her back down to earth. You allow her the chance to feel like she can express emotion, like she can be normal, and she can just enjoy being herself and doing things for the love of it rather than just for the seriousness of it all. With Min in particular, a lot of it's to do with the fact that, in particular, she played this game with one of her friends before she got killed, along with the rest of her team, where they'd play this game where they would look for ugly things like statues or toys or just something lying around that looked hideous. And for no reason she started doing that, but it all stems from a deep-rooted issue of seeing herself as someone rather ugly or undesirable. And it's really sad to hear, but it all kind of comes to a head when you eventually do lead into the romance element, where she realizes, no, I'm not actually ugly, I'm actually quite beautiful. And she begins to forgive herself for what happened to her team. She starts to kind of accept that she is who she is, and she's got someone else, which is now us, so she can teach us some things. It's not just us teaching her things. So you're teaching each other, you're learning together. And it's another reason why I really like Min and her romance route. For Yohan in particular, he's been alive for several hundred years. He's like 800, I think. And he carries a lot of guilt and trauma from the loss of his brother and all the times he's served Lux and everything. He's been around for a very long time. And I think you can probably tell deep down that while he is a kind soul, he's deeply depressed and just kind of wants to die. But then if you go with the romance option, or maybe even just as a friend, you become someone that he wants to share his experiences in the world with. Take you places, spend time with you, really enjoy yourself. And yeah, it's just really sad knowing that for the longest time he's wanted to die but only stuck around because he has a deeper purpose to serve. And yet when he's willing to walk away from it all, to live a regular life and grow old with someone, potentially even possibly giving up his immortality, that's the very moment that Umbra decides to kidnap him, and then he dies. And then suddenly, the one time where he is granted his wish of death, he doesn't want to take it, but he has to. That's why I give Yohan a lot more credit than what this game kind of did for him, because it didn't give him enough attention, I reckon. Like, I don't care what anyone's opinion is about, I don't like game romances, or it just feels weird to me, and I totally get that. I definitely get that. That's why I don't go for a lot of it myself in any sort of game. It doesn't matter what sort of role-playing game it is, I tend not to go with same-sex relationships. I just don't. A lot of it is projection. I don't mess with that myself. But if it's done well, I can at least appreciate it. And I may even be tempted to give it a go. And in this game, because it's not super long and it actually does a lot of service, in spite of the short time you spend with Yohan, it actually does rather well with itself. But it's another thing too I got to discuss about the endings. So when the game's finally over and you decide to leave your apartment to go spend time with the others now that you've awoken, whoever was killed off that you chose as your partner, they're not around, or at least until the very end credits where you get a teaser that they might have come back. But for everyone else, it's always something happy, and it's kind of sad knowing that, when you go through multiple playthroughs, a character that might have been lost in the first one, on the second one, if you let them live, then you see what they would have wanted to do, and it's quite sad actually. Like for Yuna, she continues to do her pop star work and continues to be a star and rising, and all the fame from saving the world from the apocalypse definitely helped, but at the same time she still makes time for all her friends and everyone here in the group. It's really sweet. For Sia, she's using her genius and her tech to be able to create all sorts of miracles, and I would argue do something similar to the Eternights drug that they were doing to slow down aging and everything. For Min in particular, it was just her simply carrying on Team 11's name and continuing to do running or some sort of sport or something. And following on from that, Yohan continues to travel the world, and apparently after a decade or so he stops by and sees how his brother's getting along. So it's just really sad to hear all that, and then knowing that whenever something happens to that character, they can't fulfill that wish anymore. It really feels like you leave a big hole whenever they're gone, and it's really well done. It's not given crazy presentation, but it doesn't need to. It's subtle and it's effective. Although I will point out, and which is rather funny, if you get to the end of Act 4 and you still beat that story mission at the Kafka lab, and you don't get anybody to rank 6, like you don't get Yuna to rank 6, you don't get Min, Sia or Yohan to rank 6, what will happen is that Umbra will visit you in a dream and ask who you treasure most, but because none of them are at rank 6, you can't technically pick anybody, and then it plays out pretty funnily, where Umbra's just pretty much saying, "Oh, well done, well played," and then it plays the end of the Act 5 cutscene, where the Lux cannon charges up, and then Umbra gets blasted, and then you wake up in your apartment, and yeah, I consider, and then it, sorry, I'm really tired, I've been talking all day and I'm losing my voice. Because nobody got taken away by Umbra and she died, or she got paralyzed and put back into her sleep or whatever it was, technically you saved the world and you could have still grown relatively close to everybody. Like, because I think we could all argue that if you got them to at least rank 5, all of them still care enough about you to be like interested in dating you possibly. But then if you do this, then you get a secret bad ending because you technically go back to the way you were. You never found romance, you never experienced that loss. So you're more or less just the same kind of loner loser you were before the game started. And I don't really agree with that. Because not only does Chani potentially hook up with Arya, which is what it's implying, but, I mean, Yoonji gets to go back to normal and live, Yuna still lives, Sia lives, Min lives, Yohan lives, everybody lives and they're all doing their own thing. You're going back to how you were and being humble. And while you may not have found love, which is kind of the point, and it's considered a game over, I at least don't know why the game didn't respect your choice to be alone, or at least didn't have the whole, you chose not to romance them, you still lived ranking them up, but you didn't choose them as romance options, so therefore you can't get this ending. I don't know why it didn't respect people that would just want to go the bachelor route. I don't know why it would even consider it a bad ending. I would have thought it'd be like a secret good ending. Because technically everybody lived and nobody died. So I think it's rather funny that they call it like a secret bad ending, but the first time I truly discovered that was when I was attempting that Pure Phillip challenge run that I've talked about before, and one I'm going to do commentary on for after this is over. Where, because I went with no upgrades, no using ally upgrades or abilities, that meant that I went through the entire course of the game, all the way through 4 acts of the game, and I never leveled anybody up, which means I never took them on any of their missions and I never ranked them up. And that's kind of the first problem I ran into, because while I did beat it and Dahlia was definitely a real challenge, well, technically even though Umbra wouldn't have been a better challenge than Dahlia was, because I still think Dahlia is the hardest boss in the game, what it all ended up meaning was nothing. Well, because even though you've already beaten the hardest fight there is in the game, you still didn't beat all the fights. You still didn't do it all. But then there's the problem, isn't it? How do I get into the 5th act and fight Umbra if I'm not allowed to upgrade any of the characters? Because if you rank up the characters, even if you don't use their abilities or level them up, or buy any of their abilities, or use any of them, then you're still leveling up their element, so they're doing more damage, and they can do more hits. So how do you counter that, I wondered. So I tried it again, but this time, I made sure to do the Act 4 mission where you go into the Kafka lab straight away as soon as I could. And when I did beat that, and I had all these free days left, that was when I decided to try out all these missions where I'd pick one character that I wanted to romance, which I picked Min, because Min's my favourite, and I would go on her missions, but each time I would complete one of these missions, her rank went up, her rank increased, so she could do more than one attack with her elemental attack. So what I chose to do, if I could help it, I think I ended up just saying, fuck it, who cares, but what I would do is if I could attack the barrier of a boss enemy multiple times with her elemental burst, I would only use one and I would purposely fail the second quick time event, so I had to build up the bar again and then do a second one and then fail the next attack that follows up and do it over again and again and again, and that's what I would do. And while that works for a while, it still works out, because then you get to the beginning of Act 5 where you have the gauntlet fight around the train. You've got about 4 different fights. And if I had to use her element to take out certain enemies or break their barriers, I would only make sure to use it once and never twice. While it may have been far from the hardest fights in the game, it's still something I had to respect. And then after that train gauntlet was over, she'd get taken away, and then I'd be back to square one. Although I tell you what, after that train gauntlet is over, and you technically give up your arm's power to charge the Lux Cannon, through the power of some sort of like anime friendship bullshit, you do get your power back, but before then, you have to go back to how you were at the beginning of the game. You have no arm, and you're running through an alleyway, and you're not allowed to sprint, and you're getting jumped by all the different monsters in the game that you're fighting, all the different infected. But because you can't sprint, you're super slow, and every enemy is faster, got homing attacks if you get anywhere near them. And I swear I must have died more times in that challenge run on that section than any other time in the game. It was such bullshit. I was raging like crazy. Like more so than I had in a while. I'd swear I'd almost broken my controller. I felt like breaking my entire setup at that section. It pissed me off so much. But it's not so bad in this walkthrough, because Even though our health doesn't have the greatest upgrades, it's still good enough. And we can also survive the extra hit when we hit 0 health, so there's that to be thankful for. So just to summarise, you can see here a lot of the combat encounters play out the same. If you're using Sia and her combat encounters, use the ice rain to take out guys all around you just to kind of ease the tension. Use your frost cone attack, which freezes enemies in the surroundings, so you slow them down, you can take them out more easily. It doesn't take up all that much SP now. You look at the purple bar, even though I use the ice rain, it's still got barely anything. I do find Sia's combat encounters in these sections where you're running through the city dungeon escapes to be the shortest out of all the teams. I think Min's have probably got the hardest fights, but with the stun wave ability, she makes it real easy. With Yuna, her ability to heal does prolong the fight, just to keep you in it longer, but it's not that bad. And this is, I would argue, this is far from the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. So yeah, and this was pretty nerve-wracking, having to fight this thing with only one hit away from death, because this is a boss that you technically see for the first time before the Delia boss fight. If you don't go into Sia's quest right now to get her romance going. But luckily she's vulnerable to ice. And I think I called this the doll weave, because it looks like a doll with their head, but then you've got all this weaving bandages or whatever the hell this is supposed to be. And unlike some other mini bosses, you can't really juggle it with the death blow and the strikes and everything, but you can take it out pretty easily. But yeah, I really love this game, and I've been playing it for a long time, pretty much since its launch. And I'm going to play it again and again, just spaced out. I think I'll have a lot less chances to do it just because I'm busy doing all this YouTube content. It's been really satisfying having to do it, because not only am I doing the same thing I've always been doing for years, but now it has more of a purpose. Like, I can actually put it towards, you know, not only partially showing off how good I am at certain games, but also to kind of share my niche with others and hopefully inspire them to pick up a controller or get onto the mouse and keyboard and try to play a little bit like a maniac, just doing things they wouldn't normally do, playing on higher difficulties, doing challenge runs, all sorts of things. Because I do think once upon a time, even if you played a game over and over again, eventually you'd get bored of it and you'd start playing in a way where you'd challenge yourself not to use certain mechanics, or you'd play on higher difficulties, you would make the push to try and do that. And I understand the whole YouTuber mentality of move on from one game to the next, and if there's a game you haven't played before, then that's prime opportunity for people to get excited about you experiencing one of their favourite games for the first time. Or if you have played the game before but not for a while, you can kind of feign ignorance that you're playing it for the first time. You can overreact to things. I mean, fair enough, right? There's plenty of content then if you want to go that way, but if I could have my cake and eat it too, I would love to grow in number while also playing just nothing but games I've already played before and making walkthroughs out of them, because there's plenty of games from all sorts of different areas that I would love to cover and do walkthroughs for and challenge runs and all that. But I do have to admit that if I want growth to get more people in, to get my foot in the door, so more people can come on through and get a chance to see these more niche games, then I do have to play new ones. I have to give them reviews, I have to talk critically about them, and I have to have up-to-date information. I have to make sure the game is presented well and that my information is accurate. But yeah, the last couple of years just, it's no different from the years before then, just coming back home from work and diving into YouTube and just seeing what other people are up to. I'm really enjoying this new phase I'm going through where I'm starting to be a creator rather than a consumer. Like, I'm making my own stuff rather than just watching everyone else create stuff and get ahead. And, I've gone with the philosophy of never making it about the money, never making it about artificial reasons, just this is what I love to do, and if I'm already doing it for free and in my own time, and everyone can call it a waste if they want, but this is genuinely what I enjoy doing. I feel accomplished, and while it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things compared to the world and what everybody else gets up to, this still makes me in my own little bubble feel quite happy. And even if I can help a few people, then I'm more than happy to keep making these, because I want to be doing this shit when I'm in my 40s and 50s. I don't want to stop. Not unless I physically can't do it anymore. And while it is a little bit upsetting, because I know now and going forward for a little while, I'll probably never get a single comment on any video. No one telling me that I did a good job, no one telling me that it helped them out, at least not until maybe a new game comes out. But one of these days, I'm sure it'll happen. As long as it can help a few people, I'm more than happy with that. And I've had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope to do it for a long time going forward. I'm getting a lot more confident with my commentary, even if I may fuck my words up or I may not express how I'm feeling. But yeah. So we're coming to the end of this part, and thankfully I shortened it up because I'm starting to run out of things to talk about. In the next part we'll be moving to the Kafka lab and doing the story mission for Act 4. And when that's all over and done with, we'll pretty much be moving on to Act 5, and those videos will be a lot shorter. And then I'll need to take a break after that. I'll just power on through it, but my throat's getting real sore and I need a break soon. But thank you for watching, and I really appreciate everything. You know, for now and in the future, anyone just joining for the first time. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.